I have media now covering something that we've been talking about for a year. Companies are now getting more and more exposure to these types of tools. These tools are now being introduced everywhere. Where does this go?
Do we end up in a scenario where there's just a new category of risk and we need to underwrite that risk with new policies? Or is there areas where AI shouldn't be used effectively to drive decision-making or operations? Like, is there a category that's so risky that just no one's going to underwrite it?
A lot of the time you can price the risk accordingly. And I think that that's where we're coming in and disrupting a lot of this with AI.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Code and Connor podcast. My name is Connor Deek, CEO of CodeStrap, and I'm joined as always with the original CodeStrap himself and CTO Dorian Smiley. We're going to be bringing you guys the latest and greatest around AI platforms, the tech, the companies, and the communities that surround them. We're joined today by Sam Piecz, head of AI at Corgi. Sam was employee number 6 and the company's founding software engineer. Since joining, he's worked across nearly every part of the business, from building products and leading AI initiatives to acquiring companies and running a subsidiary. Before Corgi, he worked on Discover's NLP chatbot team and spent time at multiple startups, including 3 YC-backed companies. Corgi's mission is to rebuild the $1 trillion plus insurance industry from the ground up. They're not just making a company, they're engineering financial infrastructure for the next 100 years. Last month, the company announced it raised $106 million in a Series B1 round led by TCV, bringing their valuation to $2.6 billion. Sam, welcome to Code and Connor.
Hey, Connor. Hey, Dorian. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to chat.
Absolutely. Welcome. We're excited.
So you guys are in the news a lot lately. Why don't you give your version of an introduction to Corgi, the company, the mission, the culture, and we'll springboard from there.
Yeah, for sure. So, you nailed it. Reinventing the insurance industry at the speed of compute using AI, essentially, because it's a very document-based, word-based industry. If you think of just all of the, policy documents, claims, all of the underwriting, et cetera, just really good fit for, the fact computers are good at words now.
I mean, that sounds like the mission, reinvent the industry. How are you guys building the culture around that? Because, insurance is, generally maybe an antiquated type of industry, but you guys are in Silicon Valley. You're bringing the young and the brightest to bear here.
Yeah, I would say, culturally, we work very hard. We love what we do. I worked at a couple of other YC startups, like I mentioned, and that was always kind of remote prior to working here for me. And yeah, I guess one of the things that stood out to me being in person when you're working, with that many folks that really just love what they do and are pushing really hard, I think it just compounds. And when everyone loves what they do, it's just really energizing. So if you like that sort of thing, it's really good fit for those sort of people. I felt pretty lonely, I guess, before at the other companies I worked at, because I really I love the tech, I love the product, I love just building real value for customers, talking to customers, all of that sort of stuff. And before it was kind of like exhausting almost to not have people that would match that level. So yeah, it's pretty energizing. Mm-hmm.
We're trying to build a very strong in-office culture here as well. We're actually opening our first office in Krakow in Poland for about 20 people. But I told the team, I heard this on a podcast the other day, but I really like the phrase. I'm like, if you're not 996, you're quietly quitting here, right? So
Sure.
that's the bare minimum from our perspective. And it's like the way I try to tell the team is like, you're competing against the energy in SF. If you're not based in SF, you're still competing against that energy there, and it's obscene. It's like pinned up and to the right in terms of productivity and what's going on. And so post COVID and stuff, I think we're still having challenges, people understanding some of this stuff. But what's amazing is when you do lock in is the outputs are incredible. I definitely see our team is fully committed. Watching those outputs go up and to the right and seeing what's actually possible if you can break through that barrier of hey, let's get in office, let's put in the work, be obsessed with the work, I think is the other part. It's one thing just to show up but also just being like obsessed with what you're doing is also something that keeps you there.
Yeah, I think that that's probably one of the largest differentiators, and that I've noticed. And then also just being willing to try a lot of things, right? Insurance is just such a large market. There's so many verticals and horizontals and different layers of middlemen, that there's a lot that you can go out there and do and try. And yeah, I think in contrast to some of the other opportunities I've had, we just try more things. By the time, somebody would have maybe really planned everything out and tried, a couple of things, we probably executed on 100. So I think that velocity is something I just haven't seen before, and just very tight feedback loop.
How do you get the engineers like excited about insurance too? Like that's one
That's
of
what
the
I was
things,
just going
like,
to
yeah. Like what's the maybe explain some of the problems, because I bet you there's some
Sure.
interesting problems in there, if you unpack it.
Yeah. I think one of the core things for us is, dealing with so many different platforms and different middlemen, right, in insurance, and being able to ingest all of that information across just a swath of platforms, and just a lot of unstructured data, a lot of emails, PDFs, spreadsheets, handwritten documents. For example, there's this one company that we're working with, and I don't know if you see on our LinkedIn, there's like a picture of one of our employees, Josh Shee, and he's standing in front of just a massive room full of files and folders, and they're all scanning them and pulling them in. So I mean, I think that the data and just the large amount of information that we're gathering is pretty exciting, on the engineering front, and just what we're able to do with that from an underwriting standpoint, from a claims standpoint. So I think getting the engineers excited, it's not too hard, simply because we have a lot of pull for our product, and so it's fun to work on things that people are using, and asking you to always add feedback to and improvements. It's just a large total addressable market, and if you're into that sort of thing, there's plenty to be built.
The mission also, changing something as macro as the entire insurance industry, probably, even though it is insurance and maybe on its
Yep.
face can sound a bit mundane, is actually pretty exciting, because if you
Yep.
can change the insurance game, you can actually have major ramifications on like a macroeconomic basis.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you think about, just the microphones we're talking through, the computer we're talking through, the chairs we're sitting in, the food that we ate today, the houses that we're in, just from like a raw material standpoint, the numerous layers of insurance that had to happen, from, cutting down the tree, to being driven to a factory, to the factory that it's in being insured, the employees being insured. It just touches so many layers for absolutely everything that we do that, yeah, I think that's what gets us out of bed in the morning. You can think of it like, if you woke up tomorrow and gasoline was 50 cents a gallon or something like that, that's the sort of thing that we'd love to be able to do for the industry, just because it touches so many layers. If you can, really compress that stack down, there's a lot of interesting problems to be solved there. And traditionally, the industry is just kind of so fractured that all of these different layers don't really get a feedback loop on the data at each kind of step. And it's just, you don't have really a cohesive whole picture. So that's what gets us excited, is making that possible.
Before we jump into some of the core topics we want to get into,
Hmm.
I keep hearing about this cafe that you guys
Yeah.
have. And I'm not quite sure, because most Silicon Valley companies offer free food and certainly smoothies. Uh, Touch on why this cafe is such a lightning rod. But then
It's the
second,
Corgi Cafe, right? Corgi Cafe. I've heard
yeah,
about this.
I'll
Yeah.
bring up a picture of it. But
It's
that and
becoming
like
somewhat famous, of like things happen there, and like meetings go down, people get funding, and like all kinds of stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. It's popping. I mean, I was, just leaving the office last night, super late, and 2 a.m, there's still people down there grinding away. It's packed. It's hard to find a seat. And I before moving to San Francisco, I moved here maybe about a couple of years ago, roughly. Kind of grew up around Chicagoland area, and I moved to the city to try and meet more people, because I grew up in the middle of nowhere with a lot of cornfields, that sort of thing. Just reading a lot of Hacker News in the terminal, whatever, IRC, meeting nerds online. But, I think that there's just something special about giving back to the community and being able to give them a space to hang out and meet other people. And yeah, I guess coming to San Francisco, being able to work for Corgi and do all of that, it's been really cool to see. Yeah, just the culture and the community that we have both in the office, but also trying to give back to the city with all the bus rides with YC and all that sort of stuff. It's I don't know, it's just cool to be a part of it.
And like shockingly, there's not a lot of 24-hour options I've heard in San
Yeah,
Francisco. So it's like one of the few where you're open all the time. And so people who are grinding, and building startups, this is a great option for them.
absolutely. And I mean, before that, everybody at the office would around 3 in the morning or right before 3 everyone would start saying melt, melt, melt,
Yeah.
melt, kind of like the pigeons in that one movie, or the seagulls or whatever, because the melt was the only other option that we had this late at night. So we're happy to add another option for people and have something for us to go to as well.
And just before we move on to core topics, I do want to say how important insurance is. You can't have a functional economy effectively without it. We're finding out in California that insurance is pretty important. There's a pretty big crisis in the insurance market right here in the form of homeowners insurance, and the state fund is not capable of covering the massive claims that we're seeing, happen. So I think like if Corey can provide great modeling and help understand the data better, maybe there's also a way to help inform policymakers of the dynamics here, and how insurance works so that we can have a functional insurance market. So hopefully, it's an extremely important mission, especially important in California. And you can't run a real economy unless you can underwrite risk effectively.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. You can look at, because we're always spinning up so many new products, so many new lines and different verticals, right? And when we look at these, absolutely, you have to look at both the addressable market and the level of risk, and price that accordingly, and bring in all of the factors for underwriting. And there's a lot that goes into it. I'll just say that. Yeah.
Let's jump in there on that. So the state of AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people using it in a lot of places, different business functions, obviously starting with software development as the killer use case today, and then extending on to many, many other areas. The risk factors forming here are pretty obvious, both from a cybersecurity perspective and an errors and omissions perspective. And what we see in the trades out of media is that your traditional insurance companies are actually now, one, found with regulators to be able to carve out coverage of AI workflows in kind of any domain, but then secondly, potentially excluding those. So why don't you give us your perspective on kind of what's happening here from a state of AI and the risk factors forming, and then we can get into kind of what Corgi is doing about those things.
Absolutely. I mean, you nailed it. With AI becoming so prevalent, everybody using it, it really makes sense to have some sort of coverage for that, simply due to the fact you could have hallucinations, whatever, prompt injections, all sorts of different things. And I think that, for us, it's looking at the company's, positioning, from a security standpoint, from a whole, variety of different factors. But I don't want to give away, I guess, too much of our secret sauce with our rating engine and our underwriting. But we pull in a lot of different factors from online, as well as whatever we're being given by our customers.
Is there any potential you could offer some like reports for the public to read? Because like one of the things that I often find shocking is like we go into large institutions, right? And they're actively using AI to do a lot of different things, everything from creating reports and forecasts to, PowerPoint decks, and of course, software engineering, customer service, but they are unaware of the risks. Like when you bring this up and you're like I'll bring up a common benchmark, like facts benchmark from Google. I'm like, in the best case scenario where the model's equipped with search, it still makes a mistake 15% of the time. Like that
Absolutely.
is astronomical in terms of
Yep.
risk, right? Like it's way above human baseline, in my opinion. But like
Sure.
when the sense we get is like a lot of people are just unaware that there's risk in here, and that they sort of overlook the fact that models can make up things or confidently lie or fail to retrieve a fact correctly or introduce code that doesn't do what it says it does,
Yep.
is there any potential you guys could like share this or some information with the public and reporting on the risks of using Gen AI?
Yeah. I think a big one for us would be security, and how properly positioned you are as an engineering company, and that sort of thing gives us a pretty good insight into, I guess, your development life cycles, your practices, that sort of thing, and just kind of getting a better understanding of your hygiene on how you operate as a tech company, right? Because in order to get our startup insurance, or our business insurance, right, you have to go through a process with us and speak with our AI and basically figure out more about your engineering culture and what you're building and how you're, I guess, iterating on it. And I'd have to be honest with you too. I have not been working on I guess the startup line side of things as much lately, and I know that a lot has changed in the risk factor and underwriting engine. So I'd have to pop into the code and talk to the team on that one a little bit more in depth. But at a high level, yeah, I know that it's a lot of questioning and understanding their engineering process, their security posture, where they're pulling their information from, that sort of thing.
Well, I wonder where this goes, right? If we can take it to, well, one, let's put a pin in. Let's get some reporting out there from you guys, because you can be, Ramp does this as an example. They,
Sure.
they provide a lot of reporting that not only brings notoriety to their company, but provides insight that people can utilize. But where is this going, right? I see that I have media now covering something that we've been talking about for a year. Companies are now getting more and more exposure to these types of tools. These tools are now being introduced everywhere, from
Yep.
back office functions to supply chain to commercial settings, customer service, even some crazy articles about executives kind of offloading their decision making to these tools.
Sure.
uh, where does this go, right? If we
Yep.
know there is a level of hallucination, non-determinism, all these negatives, and everybody starts using them en masse and doesn't actually recognize that there is this fallibility baked into the cake,
Yep.
uh, obviously it's probably a massive opportunity for you guys. But where do you see this ending up?
Yeah. I mean, I guess taking a step back, I kind of think back to my ethics and journalism course I took in college a while ago. And if you're interested in ethics and AI, I recommend checking out Professor Guzman, Andrea Guzman. Her work's pretty good. And the way that she explained AI, or just kind of rose the question of like, how do you even define AI, right? Like, what is AI? It can be a pretty fuzzy word. Obviously now it's associated with LLMs. It might be more associated with applied machine learning. It might be computer vision, etc. Right? Or if you look back however many years, spell check on your phone would be considered AI. And really, it's as far as I'm concerned, a bit of a moving target in terms of like what its operational definition is. And I think that it's kind of like you could be using a screwdriver still, right, to do your job, but now we have a drill. But the drill just might be a little shoddy sometimes. So you gotta kind of protect yourself from that risk there. But yeah, it's certainly not going anywhere anytime soon.
Okay, so that example though,
Yeah.
when I say I'm talking about like autonomous systems that have a
Yep.
level of basically probability where we didn't have probability
Sure.
before.
Yep.
And then the insurance industry's response to this,
Yep.
do they
And
just
accountability. It's not just that there's a higher level of probability
Mm,
baked into the cake. I think it's also accountability, right? So like, what produce the
sure.
outcomes? So like if we just look at it from outcomes perspective, the kinds of things we've seen happen are like service outages that can be caused by bad pushes in code, deleted production databases, deleted code bases. We've actually talked to a very large company that has experienced code base delete recently. Uh, we've also seen, poor customer service interactions, potential brand damage, but like from an outcomes perspective, we sort of have this bucket. We know what things can kind of go wrong, sort of, If we work backwards from the outcomes that have to be considered and underwritten, I think we're like kind of asking like, where is this, where do we end up? Like, do we end up in a scenario where there's just a new category of risk and we need to underwrite that risk with new policies? Or is there areas where AI shouldn't be used effectively to drive decision making or operations? Like, is there a category that's so risky that just no one's going to underwrite it? So I guess from like, where do you see this going from like an insurance perspective? Is it a whole new category of policies? Are there certain activities that won't be underwritten, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's always going to be exclusions, but at the end of the day, I think that a lot of the time you can price the risk accordingly. And, I think that that's where we're coming in and disrupting a lot of this with AI is I think you're just able to get a much better picture of what the risk is due to the like sheer, I guess, surface area and depth of like a profile that you can get on, somebody that's going through the process compared to what you could with just a team of traditional humans, right? I mean, when we're filing new policies, things like that, you obviously have to work, with all sorts of different departments, regulators, all of that sort of thing. And, oftentimes we're somewhat impressed at the depth of what we're able to bring to the table compared to maybe the depth that they're looking at things. I think that AI is always, a great tool to have a human pulling the strings, right? I think that like you need to always have somebody guiding it in some way, shape, or form, right? And have guardrails in place. Like you mentioned, it is all probabilities, but at the end of the day, if you can harness that and you can apply it, it's just far more powerful than just, I guess, doing things the manual way.
Are you creating policies though that like, is there
Mhm.
like a AI assisted software development kind of
Sure.
policy or an autonomous,
Yep.
and is that different from like an autonomous AI coding agent policy? Or like, do you have to think about the differences in how AI is used when you're trying to model the risk and like bucket these
Yes.
things?
Yes, absolutely. And that's part of our process. Essentially filling out questionnaire, getting information from the customer about how they're using the product or using AI in their product. What sort of surface area, what sort of tool calls it might have access to, what sort of information it's actually being fed, what sort of decisions it's allowed to make, all of that sort of thing. And also how much are you really using AI, I guess, in your portfolio, and what are the features that you're using. So certainly it's all different based on, I guess, how much you're using it in your security posturing, all of that sort of thing, what it has access to, if it's purely internal or if it's, externally facing, all of those sort of things.
It's interesting, the tool calling perspective too, because like if you think about the agent loop, like what is the total surface area of the things that agent could actually do? What are the outcome? What are the end states that agent can actually create? And it's sort of like it's like the permutations of all the tool calls almost. It's like you have to look at like, how could all of these tool calls be used to produce an end state? You're almost like informal verification territory. We're sitting there going like, what states can this system produce? Are you having to explore anything like formal verification to think about these things, or like how do you approach tool calling and looking at that and figuring out like what are the end states that this system could enable if it has access to these tools?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that we're pretty scrappy and true to a lot of the YC philosophies, and for us, it's really a lot of talking to customers, and just directly, usually with the founders, the CTO, figuring out what their I guess breadth of the application is, and working with them and basically getting a good understanding of their full suite of use cases, chatting with our tools and that sort of thing. But we're really customer centric, and so we like to, I guess, understand where they're coming from and kind of, take that more hands-on approach.
What about the harnesses too?
Mhm.
Do you get into like what harnesses are you using and Are there harnesses that you prefer from like a risk perspective? Do you prefer they not use necessarily the default harness and roll their own? Like, how do you guys think about the way the harness plays into the risk profile?
Does yellow
Sure.
mode exclude you from coverage?
Yeah,
Yeah.
dangerously bypass permissions, open claw. Um, yeah, I mean, I would say, not really looking into, I guess, the harnesses, that they're using, and using that as like a factor at the moment specifically. But again, I'd have to talk with the team to see what they've been cooking up. We get pretty granular, in depth with that conversation, and essentially, feed that into our system. And I can't get too in depth on, I guess, exactly how we do our secret sauce. It's kind of one of those things you can't game the system, right? Or like the stock market, once you find an inefficiency, or everybody knows about it, then it's not. So we have a lot of different factors that we rate based on, but yeah, I'd say that it usually starts with a conversation with the customer.
Do you think that you'll have like some influence over which harnesses become preferred in the future? Like maybe not just you, maybe the insurance
Sure.
industry generally. Do you think the insurance industry
Yeah.
generally will put pressure on, or like they'll only be willing to underwrite certain things? I'm assuming they're not just going to underwrite
Oh yeah.
everything.
Absolutely not.
So maybe
Yeah.
you have some ability to shape in the future, what is being used.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great thought. It would be cool to really, put a standard out there, and, say, hey, this is, really what we'd like you to use going forward. But to be candid, I guess, I mean, kind of going back to your earlier point on the reports, right? Yeah, we haven't put anything out like that kind of public facing, but that's a great idea, and something that would be pretty cool to do. I mean, one of the things I think about too, Dorian, with just all these different players that we have to interface with, is some sort of unified insurance spec or something to just communicate back and forth for simple things like claims and whatnot, because yeah, it's I guess it's a bit of a mess, and pretty unstructured.
So I was speaking to a friend at a conference, major insurer and reinsurer, and I was talking to him about this. Like, do customers actually understand the risk? And he's like, absolutely not. And we are doing kind of things we're talking about. There's these carve outs and new insurance products. But an interesting point he brought up to me was that the software companies who are introducing sellable agents into companies actually don't understand the risk, that because like they're all obviously grow at all costs and just trying to get their product into market, but the risk they're introducing. And what he had seen was that their policies actually don't protect them other than your generic protection limitation of liability that's not tight enough to where software companies are probably going to get put out of business once there's a major oopsies or a major impact to a large enterprise. I wonder if you can respond to that, both the what do you think customers' perspective is here on understanding the risk, but then also their vendors, that from the software vendor perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't think that they fully understand the risk that they're playing with on that side of things. Yeah, I think it's kind of a bit of educating, explaining the risks of everything that could really go wrong. And I mean, it depends on the size of the company, right? When you're talking with, a small startup team that, doesn't really even have product market fit yet, and they're still trying to find their customers and their traction, you have to kind of also weigh, yeah, I guess, is it,
Can you
yeah,
afford?
yeah,
Can you afford
can you
insurance?
afford it? Do you even have anyone using your app yet, or do you just have an MVP out? That sort of thing. Like, I mean, a common thing is fundraising, right? If you need to, raise a round, a lot of people are going to expect that you have that to be protected.
It's not
Yeah.
just startups, right? It's
Yep.
big companies too can be
Yep.
held liable for this stuff, and we don't know what the legal framework's going to look like because it has to be
Yep.
tested, right? Like the only way we figure it out is court cases are brought, and then the rules get established through the case law. But the risk here is massive. I mean, can you imagine if you were not Google and you're being held liable as a startup with 10 people that this agent you put out there got the forecast wrong, and therefore you're liable now for damages because the company relied on that information, you know? But I think we're going to find out over the next 18 months, call it, or 2 years, as more cases work their way through the system. But this is a really good leading indicator that this affects everyone, not just small startups selling agents. This is a massive company now that has to figure out how they're going to underwrite this risk. And it's a huge opportunity. I mean, it's like a massive opportunity. There's also a lot baked into that opportunity. Like, you really do have to be able to model all these various things. So like, how do you look at Google, for example, serving search now? How do you assess and underwrite the risk of false information or whatever? Now, Google probably underwrites themselves, but like, who knows? But like I think there's just a lot of modeling that is going to take place on a 24-hour basis as more of these rulings come down, that we have got to figure out a way to assess. And I'm not convinced yet we have the answer. Like, I'm not convinced we fully understand the ways these things should be modeled, because if you take something as complicated as tool calling, right, and
Right.
try to understand it, the only way we really know how to do that in software is through a method called formal verification. And it's really meant to prove what are the states that the system can actually produce, right? And that's really effectively what we want to know about tool calling too, is like, what are the states that this system could potentially produce? But then in the middle of it, you've got this probabilistic actor that changes its mind all the time, that will pursue different pathways. It's not like you
Yeah.
have one set of code and branches and conditions you can evaluate. You have this probabilistic machine in the middle that is effectively choosing new pathways and the different pathways. So like, I just see it as a fascinating area, and like,
Yep.
the modeling is going to get insane. Like, it's going to be intense. I think there's going to be a lot of intense math and a lot of like intense categorization and collection of facts and information to try and model this out. But if this case is any indication of where we're headed, I think everyone's going to be like slowing down a little bit, and maybe not pushing as forward on at least non-verifiable domains for AI. Because like, the challenge here is like, if Google misstates a fact in a search result, or your model gets the forecast wrong, or you have something that puts out a report, like we saw KPMG get popped for hallucinated sources in a report last week. They had to pull down off their website. That can be like a really slow feedback loop. And to me, that seems like the most risky domains, right? Like, they're non-verifiable. You find out 6 months later you did something, you made an oopsie, as Connor would say. Whereas like in software engineering, you can find out pretty quickly if you're wrong. Like, we have unit tests, we have end-to-end testing, we have static code analysis, we have production monitoring and observability that can let us know if there's a problem. Those seem safer, in my opinion, than the like, oh, well, let's use it for forecasting, or let's use it for reporting, or let's use it for this other use case where it's a slow feedback loop, I guess.
I'll give you a kind of a dangerous example in diligence. If you give the wrong insight to a company that then buys a company, and all of your math, let's say most of it was right, your insights were mostly right, but ultimately the conclusion of buying said company was wrong because of the part that was factually incorrect, you can get sued as the company that supported that diligence setting. That's a long feedback loop that can result in a large lawsuit. So it's kind of a dangerous game people are playing with not really understanding things, and like Dorian said, non-verifiable domains, or ones with much longer feedback loops.
I don't know. I mean, one of the things you mentioned earlier, just like how do you kind of model that? It's new, in a sense. It's I think it's somewhat similar to looking at something and underwriting it potentially, like from I guess a good analogy would be just the security perspective, which is something that we've been dealing with and aware of for a long time in technology. And I think that that's a relatively decent parallel, but it's certainly evolving quickly, and really, I think comes down to the sort of guardrails and access that these systems have access to, and then also the level of how much is being handed off to abstracted away to a business logic layer, doing a tool call or hitting an endpoint using an MCP. versus kind of all just being decided purely by the LLM's worldview and current context. If that makes sense. I guess a simple example would be just one-shotting something versus having a more streamlined workflow with a bunch of, if you're Anthropic fan, a bunch of skills and custom things like that, right? Like how advanced is your current infrastructure and tooling, and yeah, I guess how are you implementing and using the AI systems today?
We try to enforce a lot of guided workflows through skills definitions and tool call responses, and then you might have hooks and policies on top of these things
Yep.
as well to provide more deterministic layer for checks. But like, how important do you see human in the loop being? Because like one of the things I often get in fights with engineers over is like
Yep.
the sort of AI maximalists, the token maxers who are like, all I do is write loops now, and people like me are
Right.
like, that's a
Yep.
terrible idea. I want software that actually is meaningful and functions and is a quality product. How do you think about it from a risk perspective? Do you see like human in the loop as being essential to underwrite the risk moving forward, or do you see it also being possible for autonomous systems to operate safely? Like, how do you guys think about it?
Yeah, certainly human in the loop is a big preference for underwriting the risk. But I think that, I guess it depends on what sort of problem or decision those sort of systems are being applied to, right? Is it kind of more of a informational help center thing where they're just asking kind of questions, and it's more of a kind of simple traditional information retrieval type of system, or is it actually reasoning and thinking about and kind of forming its own opinions that then folks are using that to inform their workflow. But I think our favorite would probably be people that have it tightly integrated to their product, such that it does 90% of the work that a human would do or whatever, but it really surfaces everything it's thought about to the human to really review it and break it down and do a majority of the work, but really surface every layer such that it's simple and straightforward and alleviates the tedious aspects of that person's job. I think for kind of more solved problems at this point, right? Like OCRing text and voice and like all of that sort of things. I think that there are certainly some aspects that are more battle tested than others, and I think it's getting an understanding of which of those pillars as well people are using and relying on in their product offering. So
that's awesome. I have one more question. I will follow up with this. One thing I think about a lot is like this jagged intelligence problem we have here. It's like you have this model that can exhibit PhD level behaviors in one area, but then can't count the number of R's in strawberry. So you have this like weird intelligence. It shouldn't make these kinds of mistakes. There are certain benchmarks people have tried to come up with that like sort of expose jagged intelligence. I like the facts benchmark from Google because it's highly relevant to a lot of the workflows we see where it's just about information retrieval, like how well can the model retrieve a fact and synthesize an answer accurately. Are you guys thinking about building your own benchmarks to measure jagged intelligence? Because I think like one of the things that enterprises get false confidence in these things, the big contributor of the benchmarks, the model labs like to tout, like, oh, on software engineering bench it did X. Oh, on this other gamed
yeah,
benchmark, I'm saying they're gamed. I think they're heavily
yeah,
gamed
yep,
because they crush these benchmarks, but then in
for
real world
sure.
have a whole different performance profile. Are you guys thinking about
Yeah.
like measuring this somehow?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thought to release our own benchmark for that sort of thing, externally. But I would say, it's certainly something that we're thinking about, and we account for in looking at our risk. But I can't speak to exactly how exactly that's being done. But
Car wash bench. Have you heard of car wash bench? The one where it's like, I need to get my car washed. It's 100 feet away. Should I drive or should I walk? Like the AI is
yeah,
like, oh, you should absolutely walk. It's like the whole point is I'm trying to get a car wash.
right,
So like,
right.
These kind of
yeah, or
benchmarks are
the
important.
mhm.
I
Go
think
ahead.
some of this when I kind of like take my technologist hat off and go into like a business setting, that we really do need more thought leadership out there from leading companies that are solving some of this, or in your case, underwriting it.
Mhm.
Because what I'm hearing, as an example, is a supply chain leader of a massive company in medical devices telling me that they want to create swarms of agents that do operational things, and then they're going to buy Guardian AI that is going to monitor the swarms of agents. And I'm just kind of sitting here thinking, like, I don't think you understand any of the words you just said. But
Yeah.
secondly, the danger of adding such a thing that you don't really understand on the rigidity of your system, you're going to make the foundation of what worked before really weak. And then by
Yep.
extension, you're going to either at minimum pay higher premiums in insurance, if not lose the underwritability of your supply chain. So these are really, they can be really complicated topics, but I think as a collective of people that are really focused on them, we can release more at minimum white papers and thought leadership. And I think with your guys's data, you could make a real impact in doing so.
Yeah, it's a great thought, and something I'll have to bring up to the team, and I think it would be really cool to push that forward as well.
Switching here to how you guys are thinking about the fluctuating nature of like the cost profile of using AI, right? Like you
Sure.
guys obviously live in a world where you have to underwrite a an amount, right?
Yep.
But if the profile of not just the use, but then the cost of these systems continues to grow, the pool
Sure.
of assets that you guys need to put together to address that risk could be climb precipitously.
Hmm.
Can you speak to how you guys are considering the cost profile of all this?
Yeah, I think that I guess the total addressable market is just going to continue to get bigger and bigger for that specific vertical for us. Absolutely. I think that that's exciting for us on the insurance side due to the law of large numbers, and you need to have enough I guess variability, or a diverse enough risk pool, non-homogeneous like risk pool, in a sense. I think that that's like only better for us, and better for our customers as well, right? Because it just diversifies the risk pool further. So I think that that's one way I'd be looking at that and thinking about that from I guess a upside perspective for everybody.
Well, the interesting thing I think about is like how your moat is going to grow proportional to the TAM, right? And so like as
Mhm.
this TAM grows and AI becomes used in many and many use cases, one,
Mhm.
you just mentioned a really good thing, which is like your pool can't be homogenous, right? You can't have
Yep.
one type of risk and it just your whole pool falls apart. But
Sure.
you're going to unpack a lot of you, like, because you're thinking about these problems every day, you're modeling them, you're coming up with ways to measure them. You kind of get out ahead, right? So
Hmm.
like as the TAM inflates, it becomes way harder to model this. Right? Like way
Sure.
harder to answer. And if you haven't done the early work, I think,
Yep.
to figure out exactly the tools of the trade and how to do this, as a
Hmm.
traditional insurance company, you would think it would be much harder to catch up as the TAM explodes because they're going to be stuck in this situation of trying to unpack a very complex system at that point. Whereas like if you start from the very beginning, you can gradually build these things up and your moat starts to expand as the TAM inflates in a way. Um, are you guys thinking about building your moat that way, like effectively solving these challenges around modeling and what works and what doesn't, and how do you build the pool correctly? And then as the TAM inflates, you start to build this like innovation mode around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like another aspect too, in terms of I guess moat, if we're thinking about things that way, is you know just being able to compress that whole stack down, right? Kind of going back, Connor, a little bit to the culture piece, right? As we bite off a lot and we try a lot of different things. We're doing cafes, right? It's almost I like to think of it kind of like an index fund of sorts. We try a whole bunch of different things, but I think when you frame the business perspective that way, the engineering that comes downstream of that, it's exciting because you have just you can kind of think of it like building a system when say you're building like packaging in human speak, right, for some fruits or something like that. And if you've only ever seen like an apple before and you're a fruit packaging company, you're only going to design your packaging to work with apples, right? And then somebody comes along and they show you blueberries and you're like, oh man, I never thought of that. Whereas if you've seen all sorts of fruits, the type of packaging that you're going to design is just going to be a lot more robust and general purpose. And so I think that, yeah, just due to all of the different layers that we're kind of going after insurance, it gives us a very unique perspective on how exactly we should go about addressing the problem. Whereas I think some people might just look at it from one angle and one layer, and I think that would be a moat in and of itself, almost, if any of that made sense. Talking about fruit and packaging on an AI
No, it does.
podcast,
It
but
does. No, I mean, you're getting to be the early adopter and try things in the field, right? And
yep,
that's establishing a feedback loop. And I think that is going to do nothing but benefit you as you try all these new things, and then to kind of figure it out for the future, right?
yep,
And I think that there's probably no other way in what you're trying to do it. Like underwriting AI is inherently really complicated.
yep,
Um, I mean, I don't know if people understand the complexity involved in like trying to measure tool call permutations, for example. Like
yep.
that is an insanely hard thing to do. And so I think, yeah, you have to try and you have to go out and do things and you have to see what works and what doesn't. And that's going to build a huge moat around the business, in my opinion. I also think, back to this question of cost, we, we do a lot to try and like make our AI systems hyper efficient here. So we don't have to think about token burn or cost really. How do you guys think about it at Corgi? Like, are you setting token budgets? Are you experiencing any of this challenge we're now having with the cost of these systems? Or are you solving that for your internal folks? Like, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I would say, we use a lot of tokens, but at the same time, I think we're pretty efficient with them. I think, it depends on what models you're using. We're using a mix of frontier models and then also open source models on-prem. We've got a bunch of Mac studios across all of our different offices. I was just flying around with another coworker of mine to all of our different offices, setting up the Mac studios a while ago, and being able to tunnel into them and have all of our local models and whatnot. And I can't remember what the article or thread I was reading on Hacker News was, but the word on the street or the kind of general sentiment, at least last I was reading, was maybe like 1.8 years or something like that out, we might have local models that are just as good as our current frontier models. So that's kind of like the trajectory that we're dealing with here. And like anything, it only gets better and better. And I can't remember what I'm drawing a blank on the AI kind of name for it, but the equivalent to Moore's law or whatever, that's being discussed. So I think it's one of those things that it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's only going to just keep getting better and better. And I think of it kind of similar to riding like a wave of, like, if you look back at cloud computing or whatever, right? Everybody uses it now, right? But back when it was big, and so yeah, I think just leaning into it as much as we can, and I think that the cost will eventually bottom out. Yeah.
The open source models according to this report,
Yep.
overtook the proprietary models in
Yep.
terms of percentage of token share.
Yep.
I is a great indication of where things are going. I totally agree with you. I think like at a certain point, local models are going to be taking a portion of this workload as well.
Yep.
I think regardless of whether they're hosted locally or you lease GPUs in the cloud or whatever,
Sure. Yep.
enterprises want fixed cost models around this stuff. They don't
Yeah,
they
they
don't
do.
want variable costs sitting there messing up their P&L. They want to capitalize the expense. So I think the market is going to continue to move in this direction. I think the only thing that could stop it would be like a regulated oligopoly in which like you only allow two companies to essentially, you know, do AI, and you have to lease intelligence from them. That would be a terrible outcome.
Yeah, I think open models are great, as are the frontier models. But yeah, it's exciting. There's just so much coming out every day. Staying on top of it all. It moves quickly.
Are there any other restrictions or I guess benefits you guys give to people using AI in novel ways inside Corgi? I get how like the types
Sure.
of models you're doing and some of the hardware aspect to it, but
Yeah.
like you guys model risk for a living.
Yep.
Are there places that you are saying internally like, hey, we're not going to use it here? Or secondly, there will be no autonomy in this territory. And that could be in any part of the company. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say we're using it everywhere very heavily. But it's always going to be a human pulling the strings, reviewing the end result. But again, you're just able to get such a deeper breadth of knowledge and I guess testing and QA on things using these systems than you would just with a traditional team of humans. We have all of our endpoints, everything. We've got hooked up to our own internal AI hive mind or whatever. Everyone at the company can chat with it. Everyone at the company can interface with one another's conversations, things like that, shared memories. It learns all of from all of those conversations and just gets hardened and better over time. But I think it's one of those things where it's there's a lot of automations, there's a lot of workflows, but it's always human pulling the strings and doing the final sign off. And I think that we're just reinventing and rethinking of insurance at such a fundamental level from so many different perspectives that there's a lot of value to kind of this shared like rethinking of the industry throughout this platform of ours or internally. We use it a lot internally and then also externally facing, but we kind of have our internal version and then our external facing version. But I guess it's also these humans interacting with it over a long period of time, right, that are domain experts and know more than anybody in the field for what they do in insurance, and then being able to propagate that out to every single function, right? Like, I think it's pretty amazing that the engineering side is able to have such a tight feedback loop with the underwriting side, right? And all of these different functions are able to really, deeply understand all of the different areas of the business where, usually you can only get so deep with, your time as a person and how much you can scale your own, personal resources, right? I think it's just really cool to democratize all of that expertise across a lot of different functions that might not normally have the ability to, communicate or interface as tightly. And I think that there's a massive value add for all of that. And, the more educated then people get on everything else, cross-functionally at the company, I think the more eyes that you simply have on things. So again, I think it's knowing how to choose the best of both worlds and use the right tool for the right problem. And, what should be AI, what should be traditional, and, how do you use the AI to call, maybe more of that traditional codified logic in a more constrained and guardrailed way.
What's the killer use case right
Yeah.
now? I mean, in insurance, is it underwriting? Is it claims processing, adjusting? Is it customer service?
Yeah.
Where's the biggest bang right now for your guys' buck?
Yeah, I think really all of it. There's just so much to be optimized. Everything runs on emails still for a lot of these companies, right? And
No truer statement has ever been
yeah.
uttered, dude. Like, we're
Yeah.
using the best technology the 90s had
Yep.
to offer, dude, to like run everything.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean,
hilarious.
the other side of it is, right, you build something that would be really sleek and modern, right? But you have to realize we're dealing with an industry that's, older than money itself, right? And is just so deeply ingrained in everything. It's been around forever that it's really hard to get them to change, right? Like, even if you build something that's really new and modern and like flashy and makes their life a lot easier, sometimes they just, they don't care. They want their emails. So, the customer's right. And it's figuring out how do we, still, kind of give them what they want in their traditional sense, but then, take all of that unstructured data, make it structured in a reliable, safe way across so many different variances and like your input sources. And I think being able to accomplish that's a big thing. Also, just having a single system that they're able to interface with, right? Like I mentioned, I've been working across a lot of the different teams here on all the different verticals, whatever. I've seen it all. I've been, engineering a lot, building the systems, but also talking to customers. And I've seen a lot of insurance software on a lot of different verticals. And every single time it's just like hyper specific, niche, hard coded to this one, like life insurance, right? System, right? It's not like, hey, we're a generalized kind of insurance platform that handles everything and interfaces with your claims and talks to all of these different angles. So I think that, that's just kind of I guess a bit of a theme, and we're trying to break that mold and just say, hey, anything in insurance you do, you can come to us. Our system talks to all of it, handles all of it.
You made some good points in there about like enterprise systems being highly customized. They're not, a lot of industries are reluctant to change. They have no motivation to change. This also happens in pharmaceuticals, by the way. Like there's just no incentive to change when you basically have a dominance over the market, and you're sitting nice and pretty. Doesn't matter if the processes don't work or are inefficient, whatever. Like, give me a reason to care, right? Do you think there's a forcing function here though that you guys are introducing where you're gonna force them to care, right? Like if you can, like I saw an interesting use case with AIG the other day where I think it was Palantir that was working with them, and they're effectively able to get through underwriting much faster, right? And so like I think they took it down to minutes or hours, something that used to take weeks to do. And but someone told us, the knock-on effect of that is you can snatch up all the good policies before your competitors can, and like they're left underwriting garbage, and that can become a forcing function for the industry to then change, right? They have to now keep up with this first mover over here who's making life harder for them. Do you see less happening with you guys where you're going to introduce these forcing functions to move the needle here? Or
Yeah, and I mean, we already see it every day on the startup line of our business where, people are able to just come in and get a quote in, 5-10 minutes. Or whatever, talking, filling out the form, it can all be self-serve, but we just kind of love the whole white label talking to customers approach whenever we can. But I think that also, like on our trucking line of insurance, right? Just for somebody who's, driving a truck full of pistachios across the US and needs to insure it for, $2 million or whatever it might be, that process of them getting an insurance quote takes a super long time. And with the nature of their job, it might be like, hey, I've got this random massive thing. I know you're not a pistachio driver usually, but like, hey, can you get this load? And these are people's livelihoods. That ability to quickly act on it is whether or not they get the job or the deal or not, and that book of business. And so, being able to give those people a competitive edge and also move the economy more faster, get those pistachios to where they need to be sooner, it's pretty exciting and something that, we're not hearing that they're able to, really get this instant quoting anywhere else. And it's just, you can't really compete with that when it, just is that much better of a product. So it's exciting to be able to do that across a lot of the different verticals. And then, you mentioned, just the speed as well is usually due to a lot of the brokering type of situations, right? What's unique about us is we're the carrier. we're not just trying to partner with the incumbents only, right? We're also owning our own full insurance stack there, and that allows us to give a lot better benefits to our customers, move more quickly, and again, just like insurance claims, for example. We handle your claims. You're going to come right to the people that you talk to when you got your policy, and we helped you get exactly what you needed. You're not going to have to go to some third party person that you have no idea who they are. Like I got when I moved out to SF, I've got a right hand drive Subaru from Japan. Nothing crazy, but I love that car, and somebody swerved into the lane and hit me, and I remember calling the insurance company and trying to file a claim and get it taken care of, and it was just an absolute nightmare. I couldn't get a hold of anyone for like multiple days, and I just got forwarded to some call center, and it was just really hard to get anything that I needed. And so like having that experience versus just coming to us, and we're both the carrier and have the claims in house. We're just able to speak so much better to it, move more quickly, get you a better price, all of those things.
I love that. I think that this is how you drive GDP growth and make people's lives better, is you force industries to evolve, right? Like a lot of these industries have had no pressure to move the needle, and we've just been stuck with broken systems in a lot of cases. So like I would love to see VCs become more active in this area of like investing in industry, investing in services that may look saturated, but at the end of the day, there's actually a ton of opportunity because of modernization, and that has a direct impact on GDP, and that has a direct impact on the consumer's life, so yeah, I love it.
A company taking the benefit from the technology and reinvesting in customer service versus just focusing on automating away customer service, like you said,
Yep.
Dorian, you're going to lead to a better consumer experience, which, I mean, man,
Yeah.
we would all benefit from in a lot of different
Big
places.
time. Now do the DMV next.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. Today we learned more about Corgi and their approach to solving insurance challenges in the age of AI. We discussed the risk vectors organizations must consider to safeguard their operations, as well as how Corgi responds to these challenges through products and policies, and how the company is accounting for complexity growth from AI, including cost considerations. Sam, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us. Where can people find out more about you and Corgi?
Thanks so much for having me, Connor and Dorian. Yeah, check us out at corgi.insure, and if you're looking for a job on the engineering side, please shoot me an email at sam@corgi.insure.
Well, future episodes coming, more and more guests of partners, customers, content creators, tech companies, you name it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.